Did you know that the only difference between surveillance and stalking is whether or not you're aware of it? That's right, folks. This is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading on December 28, 2024. And this adorable little painting I just received in the mail today. I ordered it on eBay, or I won it on eBay. Hand painted little foxy. Just looks like my little foxy. And the artist is Dilrushi from Sri Lanka. And this is my little foxy, just like the one that I have outside. So cute. And so we're still going to talk about fusion centers, but let's discuss surveillance versus stalking. And you know that stalking is against the law, right? Right? In every city, every state, there are federal laws, there are state laws against stalking. And back in the day, there was something called the Peeping Tom, you know. The Peeping Tom, like back in the day, like you'd have these perverts. You know, they'd walk around and they'd like flash you with their open coats. They'd peek into your windows at night. That's why they call them Peeping Toms, right? And Peeping Janes, right? But that was before we had all the technology that was being disseminated through police departments, through fusion center operatives, InfraGard, your neighbors, you know, all the things that you can buy on eBay under the guise of recorders and stuff like that. How about the through-the-wall radar that firefighters use to just make sure that somebody's actually inside the building before they go break down the door and put out the fire, right? They need to know if there are people in there to save. But they're misusing this technology, of course. So I asked ChatGPT, and, you know, some people like it, some people don't, but the thing is, it's been programmed to tell us stuff. And it's been programmed by humans. Okay, humans programmed ChatGPT. My question is, why is the pernicious use of covert surveillance in the United States not considered stalking? Not considered as stalking? So here goes. The distinction between covert surveillance and stalking often depends on legal definitions, intent, keyword, intent, and context. Here are some key reasons why covert surveillance may not always be classified as stalking in the United States. 1. Legal definitions of stalking. Stalking typically involves repeated, unwanted, and harassing behaviors that cause a reasonable person to feel fear or emotional distress. And laws vary by jurisdiction, but generally require that the intent is to harass or intimidate, or both. The action is a pattern of behavior and repeatable. And there is a direct connection to the victim's knowledge of the surveillance. Okay, you got that? There's the intent to harass or intimidate, repeated actions, or a pattern of behavior. And typically stalking is an obsession and a compulsion, which means it's an addiction, right? And then the direct connection to the victim's knowledge of the surveillance. So basically, if you know that it's happening, it's stalking, okay? If you don't know it's happening, like early in the program, when you're being surveilled and you're not aware of it, or you are aware of it, but you don't know that you're in a program, it does matter if you're not aware of it. But if you are aware of it, you're annoyed by it, you notice that as a pattern, it would be considered stalking. But if the subject of covert surveillance is unaware of it, it may not meet the legal threshold for stalking, especially if there's no explicit harm or distress caused. Because at that point, the victim, the one being surveilled, is not aware of it yet. Number 2, The legality of surveillance. Certain types of surveillance are legally permissible in the United States, especially when it's conducted by, 1, law enforcement or government agencies with proper warrants or legal justification. And of course, that would need to be made known to the individual. 2, private entities in contexts where individuals have reduced expectations of privacy, such as in public places or the workplace. Not in somebody's private homes, not on somebody's private property, not in my bathroom, not in my shower, not in my closet, not in my chicken coop, where there are reduced expectations of privacy, such as public places, like the supermarket, let's say, post office, or the workplace. As long as the surveillance complies with laws like the Fourth Amendment, it might not be considered criminal behavior. Well, I don't know, guys. I don't know anything that's happening to us that complies with any amendments. It doesn't comply with any laws. Right? I mean, I'll give you a case in point, an example. And I've got lots of examples, right? Well, how about the Marx people? Like, the Scarlet, everybody knows of her as the Scarlet. She wants to duke it out with me on the county road. Okay, so now that kind of surveillance seems a little overt to me, right? Maybe she's part of, this, my favorite Bureau of Instigation, where they want to instigate you into reacting so they can record how you respond, so they can monitor your brain activity and then set you up for a future crime. Okay, so you get what I'm saying. So she wants to duke it out with me on the county road, she drives by 4 times calling me a heifer. Okay, well, I'm sorry, guys. I generally don't show me, but I'm not a heifer, okay? I think the only time I've been a heifer was when I gained like 62 pounds when I got pregnant with my daughter, right? Even my mother says she's never seen a bigger pregnant woman. But anyway, I digress. So how about the poopy diapers thrown by my mailbox? Or how about the threats to my worker when I was removing trash because he had to work there, and she drives by and threatens him that, her son-in-law is the sheriff, which we discover is not true, thanks to somebody in this community that said, please don't say that that's her daughter. That's not her daughter, and she is not related in any way, shape, or form to the sheriff. Okay? So, but how perpetrators like to lie. So, and what about the dead animals in my mailbox? Like, they didn't walk in, skin themselves and walk into the mailbox by themselves, did they? No. Okay, so anyway, I digress. So, the legality of surveillance. There are certain types of surveillance that are legally permissive in the United States, especially when conducted by law enforcement or government agencies with proper warrants and legal justification, which I haven't received any of those yet. Now, targeted people or non-targeted people, have you ever been shown a warrant for your surveillance or any kind of legal justification? Okay, and being under investigation when I report a crime doesn't mean that I'm under investigation. Just for the record, for the losers that are listening out here that are surveilling me. When something is under investigation after you report the crime, they need to be investigating the people that you reported to them. So then there are private entities in contexts where individuals have reduced expectations of privacy, such as public spaces or the workplace. As long as the surveillance complies with laws like the Fourth Amendment, it might not be considered criminal behavior. But there's number 3. What is the intent and the purpose? What's the intent behind the covert surveillance? That matters. If the purpose is to investigate for safety or for business related, like monitoring an employee activity, it might be deemed lawful. Conversely, stalking is typically characterized by malicious intent or obsession with a specific person. Well, Scarlet Marks, she appears to be quite obsessed with me. And she does possess malicious intent, as did my neighbors John and Mary Perky, which you can see on Neighborhood Wars on A&E, April 11, 2023, with them tearing down my gate across the street, threatening my worker with a loaded weapon, shooting bullet holes through my no trespassing sign, and my finding the casings and nobody investigates it. Yeah, the former sheriff goes down the block and says to me, "Oh yeah, we found the John Deere tractor. It is in fact parked in their backyard." Okay, you don't need to tell me that. I saw it go back down there and go down to the neighbors, go arrest them. Nah, that didn't happen. So the intent behind surveillance matters. Stalking is considered to be characterized by malicious intent or obsession with a specific person, like a targeted person. Number 4, then there's the challenges of proof. Victims of covert surveillance might not always know it's happening or be able to prove its existence. Well, if you look at all the targeted people online, they're providing evidence all the time. This makes it challenging to meet the legal criteria for stalking, which requires clear evidence of the behavior and its impact on the victim, which I did in fact prove to the judge when I took my sorry-ass neighbors to court for protection of order, and the judge refused to give it to me. He didn't even entertain the fact that they tore down my gate, although he did view the video in the court and did nothing. Complicit judge. And no, that's not Judge Gabbard. You know, I've got nicknames for everybody. Judge Gabbard is Judgy Pudgy. Okay, he's the judge executive. It means that he's an administrator, right? So he oversees the roads and stuff. I don't know what else he does. He claims to be some kind of a minister or a pastor. I don't know the difference between a minister and a pastor. Please, if you know the difference, leave a comment down below. All I know is that priests are supposed to be celibate, but that ain't true either. I think I've mentioned that before. Anyway, and a lot of people, and this is not anything against if you're gay, but a lot of people, like back in the day, the men would go into the priesthood because they didn't want anybody to know that they really like guys instead of women. So they go hide out in the priesthood so they could grope little boys. Yeah, the altar boys, by the way. And I know for a fact because I knew one of those altar boys. Yeah. Number 5, gray areas in technology use. Modern technology such as GPS trackers, drones, which are over my property every night, and software has blurred the line between surveillance and stalking. And some uses of these technologies might be invasive, but fall into legal loopholes due to the outdated or insufficient regulations. And that is key. Right there. Outdated or insufficient regulations. Right there. And someone and I have been trying to ban certain things here in the state of Kentucky for 3 years, and nothing's been done yet. So then there's advocacy and reform. There is a growing concern about the misuse of surveillance technologies and their impact on privacy. Advocacy groups and lawmakers continue to push for stricter regulations to address these issues and close gaps in existing laws. If you feel that covert surveillance is being used in a harmful or invasive way, consider... get this. Okay, mind you, this is ChatGPT. Consider consulting legal experts or local law enforcement to explore your rights and potential recourse. Okay, well, we all know that we can't do that. We can't trust those creatures, right? They're the ones that are surveilling us, or they're the ones that are complicit in allowing these government programs into their community. Yeah. And then However, if the person or person of interest is aware, this is the key, if they are aware of surveillance and it does cause distress and harm, is it considered to be stalking? I asked ChatGPT. And of course, the desired response, yes. If a person becomes aware of the covert surveillance directed at them, and it causes emotional distress, fear, or harm, the behavior can potentially meet the legal definition of stalking, depending on the circumstances and jurisdiction. Here's why and how this could happen. Number one, awareness and distress are the key factors. Pay attention, everybody. The difference between stalking and surveillance. Awareness. If you know that you're being surveilled and it is intrusive enough to disrupt your sense of safety or peace of mind, the legal definition of stalking may apply. Like people coming in and out of my house and stealing things that they shouldn't know or even hear. Emotional distress. Many anti-stalking laws specify that the victim must experience fear, anxiety, or a sense of being harassed as the result of the behavior. Awareness of surveillance typically intensifies these feelings, and I can attest to the fact that I have more than a sense of being harassed. I am being victimized. I am being tortured. I am being asset stripped. I am being poisoned, as are my animals, and my buildings are being destroyed. So I am acutely aware of their surveillance. And as early of May of 2019, since moving to Kentucky, I was aware of this surveillance. And I was aware that I was being stalked by the now current Sheriff Daniel Isaacs as he sat in his vehicle diagonally across from me, surveilling my property. Number two, surveillance plus malicious intent equals stalking. This is ChatGPT. Surveillance plus malicious intent equals stalking. This is like, this is an equation. A plus B equals C. Surveillance plus malicious intent equals stalking. Stalking laws often hinge upon intent. If surveillance is done with malicious motives such as harassment, intimidation, or exerting control, it's more likely to be classified as stalking. And this includes, here it comes, guys, repeated or prolonged monitoring. Repeated or prolonged monitoring, invasion of personal space or private areas, behavior designed to cause fear or assert dominance. Number three, when surveillance is unlawful, even if the surveillance is technically legal, such as monitoring in public spaces, it can still cross the line into stalking if it targets an individual persistently. Targets an individual persistently, even in a public place. When you go to the grocery store, if you've got some sorry-ass sheriff's car pulls up right next to you, I would venture a guess that that target is being persistently, individually targeted by surveillance. And then it becomes stalking and is unlawful. If it's combined with other harassing behaviors like following, sending messages, or appearing uninvited at locations, you know, sort of like when Jeff, the American guinea pig cash cow, spent a few weeks here. He goes into town Yes, lo and behold, he's at the supermarket. Who shows up but a sheriff's car? He goes in, comes out, and somebody went into his vehicle and actually sliced a bunch of bananas that he'd purchased. Yeah. True story. Well, some states have specific laws addressing behaviors like cyber stalking, monitoring online activities, like that gorilla person that I had for a whole year that, thank God, disappeared. Or the misuse of technology. Well, we still have many of these creatures in the chat, in all the online forums. We still have cyber stalkers. Number 4, the legal framework. In most U.S. states, define stalking with elements that could be applied in cases of intrusive surveillance. Number 1, California's Penal Code 646.9 defines stalking as willfully, maliciously, and repeatedly following or harassing another person in a way that causes fear or distress. Then there's the federal law, 18 U.S. Code Section 2261A as an apple. It prohibits actions intended to harass, intimidate, or cause substantial emotional distress, including the use of surveillance technology, in which, by the way, Jesse Mendoza in Texas, a targeted guy, who has filed lawsuits, by the way, has done extensive research on the health risks of surveillance technology, not only to the targeted person, but to the person using the surveillance technology, like coppers. Because a lot of cops have come down with testicular cancer as a result of their laptop and tasers and stuff like that. They think that they're whipping out these technologies and stuff and they're going to harm the other person. Meanwhile, every time that taser is deployed, some of that little stuff goes back at the officer. That's right. So Jesse Mendoza, on his website, wirelesswatchblog.org, I believe it is. He's got all the lawsuits he's filed. He's got all the research he's filed on the surveillance technology and the harm on health. Not only to the target, because the target is being surveilled 24/7. So it's non-stop surveillance technology. Radiation, radio frequencies, bathing the home environment with EMF. But the person who is using the technology also gets a little bit of it. So if the surveillance involves explicit threats, the behavior can escalate to criminal harassment or even terrorism-related offenses under federal laws. And this is for educational purposes only. This is research, legal research. Number 5, defense against surveillance stalking. If a person feels distressed by surveillance that meets the criteria for stalking, they can document the evidence, keep records of incidents, including photos, messages, or witnesses. Well, try to seek legal protection. File for a restraining order, protective injunction, which I did do and was denied to me here. So that little judge, maybe he's still here. I don't know. He needs to retire. Give it up. Report it to the authorities. Yeah, right. Inform law enforcement, emphasizing the harm and distress caused. Well, you know that if they don't investigate it, they're involved. They're complicit. I've already reported all of my neighbors who have received cease and desist letters. And I've given those cease and desist letters not only to the sheriff's department, but to the county lawyer, Ross Murray. No one's done a damn thing. Consult a lawyer. Explore options for civil lawsuits, especially for damages related to privacy invasion or emotional harm. And I'm going to add slander. And I'll tell you right now, some of the lawsuits that are filed where you can get really big bucks are in defamation lawsuits where somebody says something that is not true. Like neighbors approaching your workers on the property and lying to them, saying that you don't pay your bills or I won't pay them. Yeah, Eddie Marks did that. Oh, and yeah, Mary Perky threatened my 18-year-old worker. Thank goodness he was 18, because actually, if he was 17, it might have been really a criminal act. But she still did threaten him that if he continued to clean my property, he would be part of her lawsuit. I don't know, guys. Please, could you leave a comment down below? In what jurisdiction would anybody be able to win a lawsuit for my hiring somebody to clean my property, my paying them to clean my property, and then have a sorry-ass neighbor threaten them that they're going to be part of her lawsuit if they continue to clean my property? I don't know, guys. Am I living in the Twilight Zone or what? So when surveillance becomes invasive and harmful, it's crucial to address it proactively, as the overlap between legal and illegal behavior can be complex. Well, thank you, ChatGPT. I appreciate your honesty, at least most of it, until we get down to reporting it to local law enforcement. You know, maybe if I were not a targeted person or they weren't trying to steal my property, I could do that. Right? Now we just have to seek citizen journalists, people, the whistleblowers out there that want to report on this, like Karen Stewart. Please come back, Karen. I miss you. Anyway, this is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading, exposing one criminal at a time. The difference between surveillance versus stalking is your awareness of it. If you're not aware that you're being surveilled, it's not a crime. But if you are aware, then it's considered to be stalking. Because then it's the intent to harass and intimidate. It's repeated. It's a pattern of behavior. And there's a direct connection to the victim's knowledge of the surveillance to make it considered to be stalking. And there are federal and city and state stalking laws. Please hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel grow, get the message out there. And I look forward to a lively conversation. Oh, and by the way, I will have my chat at 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight, so please join me. Hopefully the criminals won't knock me out with the radio frequencies. And I will see you then.